Well, hello. How you doing out there? We've come a long way. We've really worked hard, and we've accomplished a lot. I know you guys have practiced real hard, and you've accomplished a lot, and you just started to really get your playing together. But let's be honest here. There's a long way to go. There's a lot about music that we're going to continue to learn, and to be honest, music is a lifelong ambition. So we've just barely scratched the surface with these lessons, but you've got to remark at how much you've learned. You've got to feel like you've learned a lot. And just in case you've forgotten a few of those things, I want to go over to the board here and point a few of these things out, because this is everything that we've covered in these 40 chapters. Okay, we started off at the very basic level of just learning the layout of the fingerboard. We talked about that for a long time, but it was really important, so we spent a good deal of time on it. Okay, and we incorporated the cage system with the layout of the fingerboard, meaning how the cage system applies up and down with the roots and the octaves, and we showed you how that all connected together. Okay, so there's a lot of information in this concepts right here of fingerboard layout and the cage system that we apply continually from now on. Okay, we've introduced the idea of basic counting, quarter notes and eighth notes. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot more about counting in other lessons, but we've gotten an idea of what counting is all about and how it applies to our charts. We introduced the concept of major pentatonics and minor pentatonics. Okay, those are scales that involve 5 notes, and we've used those a lot in our lessons. And I know that you've learned those now in 5 positions, but you're going to keep working on those and getting more facility with those patterns. But those are very useful scales that we use a lot. I talked about a variety of bar chords that come from the cage system and move up and down the neck and give us facility all over the neck in different keys. And we've also talked about simplified chords called power chords. We use those in some of our tunes. Okay? And then we introduce more chords with major sevenths, minor sevenths, and dominant sevenths from the bar chord shapes, and those go back to the cage system. So we learned a little bit about chords in this single string sort of lesson and curriculum, but we had to talk about chords to show you other things. Okay? So we're going to get more in chords and some of the other contents that we have coming up. Okay, we learned some simple concepts of harmony, how a scale is harmonized to create chords, right? We learned a little bit about that, and we're going to continue to work on the concepts of harmony, but I had to show you some things about harmony so you can understand how chords are built. Okay, we learned a lot about sequences. We learned sequences of thirds, fourths, fifths in major scales, and also groups of 3 and 4 in major scales, but we applied those to pentatonics as well. We learned groups of 3 and 4 with pentatonics. I'm pretty sure we did that. Okay? And then, of course, we learned major and minor scales because those relate to everything that we're talking about here, right? The whole basis of all this information comes from the major scales, and what happens when you harmonize major scales, what you get with chords and melody and all that. So we learned and talked a lot about major and minor scales. Of course, we did a lot of technique and talked a variety of technique issues, bending, double stop bending, vibrato. We even talked about slides. I didn't write that down, sliding between notes. And of course, we talked a lot about riffs when we were jamming, so that was pretty important. Okay? We also covered some basic triad arpeggios of major and minor chords, and that was really important, and we'll talk a lot more about triads and even full 7th chord arpeggios in other lessons. And finally, we finished off with octaves, and that was our last lesson. We had a lot of fun with those. So we covered a lot of ground just in those 40 weeks or 40 contents, or 40 lessons, I guess is what we should say. Okay, so I don't know if you realize how much you learned, but there it is right there on the board, and I might have even forgotten a few things. Okay? So I want you to keep practicing really hard and review this stuff, and really keep track of it all and make it part of your practice routine every day. I want you to go over all the bar chord all the cage chords that we've learned and apply them up and down the neck in different keys. So if you just decide to pick up your guitar one day and practice your cage chords, you're going to say, okay, today I'm going to play all my cage chords in the key of E. And I'm going to start from the lowest open E chord and go up and down in all the E forms. And then you say, okay, now that I know that, I'm going to go up to another key, and I'm going to try that out. So let's see, I'm going to go up to B. There's my lowest B chord, and I'm going to continue all my B chords. And or this one. Right? And just do that routine for a few minutes. There's other ways you can practice it. You can stay in one position and do that as well. You could say, now I'm going to go from the key of G, up a fifth to another chord, the key of D, up a fifth to another chord, the key of A, up a fifth to another chord, the key of E, and so forth. And then you can learn your chords and work on them that way. So do that every day for warm-up. That's really good. Also do your scales in thirds. In major and in minor. Right? And do those in different positions. Don't take too many positions on at once. But if you can do one or two positions for a while and really get that system down, that's good. So maybe this pattern right here and pattern 2. And minor here. Okay, that would be a good sequence to work on, just in 2 patterns for a while. Okay? I really think that the pentatonic should be learned. Right now, you guys should know the pentatonic in 5 positions. So you really should play major pentatonic in all 5 positions. You should know this because it's so useful for many of the things that we've covered. And then, of course, the minor version of that. You should know all that. So make sure you learn major and minor in 5 positions, and that should be a goal of yours, to complete pretty soon. Okay? You should also just work on building your technique from a variety of different exercises we've been dealing with. I gave you some technical exercises like this. Things like that that'll help your fingering. It'll help certain finger combinations. Go back and look at some of those technique exercises we covered. And if you find something that you make up on your own or you learn from somebody else, write that down and keep that in your little technique practice book. Okay? And then, when you're working on your bending, just make sure all your bends and everything and all the techniques we've talked about that we've learned are really considered, right? In tune. Make sure your bends are really clean. Okay, that's all part of getting better with your technique. So really make sure that you're listening to your guitar and listening to the sound that you create when you play. Don't just play and tune out. You really want to hear and make your notes sound good. Okay? So